Hello, magical mamas. We are here getting all ready, and there's my husband, Travis. We're getting all ready for the live Q&A call. So it should be starting to announce it everywhere. I'm getting the webinar video started. So just kind of getting everything set up. Yay! So excited. Oh, it's a little fuzzy. I think I've had smudgy hands touching my computer. Sorry. There we go. Hey, Jessica. So excited you could join in. Let's see. Hello, Krista. Yay! All right. I'm just getting everything set up. And of course, open up your chat. That way you can type away and ask any questions or put any feedback as your, hey Laura, glad you're on the call. Hey Kayleen. All right. Yay! I'm excited too. I love it. Everybody's popping on the call. So exciting. And some of you guys have met my husband, some of you haven't. Some of you are going, who's the man behind the magical mother? Who is this mystery man that puts up with all of her shenanigans? And hey, Carly, so excited you're here. Yay! All right, let's see, where did you guys go? All right. Yay! Hi, Heidi! Okay, there we are. Just closing up windows. That way we've got some free... Okay, and feel free for you guys. We're doing it live on Facebook. I think my lens is dirty. It looks a little... Yeah, sorry. Yay! Hi, Autumn! Yeah, I do have an old iPhone as well. Hello, Melanie! It might just be the light. Yes.
I mean,
it's alright, so...
I get a video.
Oh, man, we gotta adjust this screen, though, too. Alright, double screens. Okay, Krista, are we good? You can hear us on yours. Facebook Livers. Hi, Laura! Sounds like everybody is good there. You can hear us and see us. All right. You're good. Carry on. I know, Carly, you're like, get to the point, man. You're taking too long. He's probably...
I'm saying the same thing.
He's totally right on board with you. Get on with the show already. We're ready. Got it. So welcome to A Magical Evening with me and my husband, Travis. So, a little bit about us. We have been together for about 8 years now. We have 2 kids, if you don't know, a 5-year-old and a 4-year-old. We met, actually, in a bar, and we used to have lots of fun drinking and partying. And
a lot's changed.
A lot has changed. So, for those of you who think that you have to stay on the same page as your husband all the time, know, hi Tina, that it's just simply not true. We have not. Lots have changed, and there's a growth process that happens. So we've been talking a lot about this call and going, okay, we better have some questions just in case nobody else has questions for you. And what are we going to talk about? What do people want to know? Hey, Caitlin. Hey, Tina. So, what do you guys want to know? Do you have any questions? Do you have things that you would like to know from his perspective about either magical mothering, what has happened as I've changed through magical mothering, because I definitely wasn't this empowered, strong, magical person when we met.
Or as we go through the topics,
if you have any questions that appear about the relationship or our decisions that we've made that has come to this point, you can feel free to ask then too.
Yeah. So, since it's already come up, I wanted to talk about growing together and growing apart. I think that has been one of the biggest dynamic changes that we've had during the past 8 years, is we come together and we have a united goal and we move towards it, and then we start kind of drifting off into, like, I went into magical mothering and he pursued a music career. And those were very different, and we grew apart in that space for a little while, with him pursuing his passion with other guys and me pursuing my passion of getting this business started. We've grown apart in that. And then, all of a sudden, life brings us together for another united goal that we can move forward with. So, our first united goal that really brought us back together after we had kids was our decision to move out to the desert and live off grid.
Yeah, that was... There's a big step with what we decided to do. Excuse me, I got a lot going through my head. Because I want to recap on what you were saying. So it's not that the relationship is just, it goes apart and then just comes back together when we see fit to do so. Life itself is always flowing in that manner. So sometimes I flow in my own way and she flows in her own way. And then when we decide to flow together, positive things tend to happen a lot faster rather than just things just being pushed to the wayside. So when we come up with the decision together and pursue it together with 100% certainty that that's what we want to do, things tend to turn out a lot better than doing it on our own, so to speak.
Krista says, you're a Virgo, you always have too much in your head going on. She's a Virgo too, so
Right.
She knows. Hey Jessica, so glad you're here.
So, yeah, with that being said, everybody kind of walks their own path, and then when two people choose to get together, of course their path comes together. And as they walk that path together, it's okay in my perspective, because we're pretty open people. We respect each other's paths in life, so to speak.
And passions.
And everything else. So I mean, our lifestyle, so to speak, we allow each other to go off and do whatever it is that they want to pursue. You know, there really is no like, oh, I don't want you doing this for my own reasons or this or that. It's whatever your passion is, whatever you want to pursue, do it. And I've supported her in doing that, and that's where she's come to today, doing this, and she's supported me through all my lunacy as well. And I've done many different things, always changing, always looking for a new career, looking for new insights, new things to do. Always got a project that may not always be finished, and it's constant. But she still supports me through that too. So that when it comes in and out, it's the same thing. When we work together, we can accomplish more together, and when we're working by ourselves, we still accomplish a lot, but it's a different type of thing in the relationship.
Hey Brianne, thanks for joining in. So we would love any questions or any comments that you have, or anything that you want to ask. And so the big thing that I wanted to talk about was that Magical Mothering was not created as a business. Magical Mothering, for me, was created as a way to remind me of the tools and the techniques that I wanted to learn and implement in my mothering. And it has evolved and grown as an entire spiritual practice for me, as now a business, and has evolved. But, hey Kimberly, but through the Magical Mothering growth, I've changed and been able to implement a lot of parenting tools and styles that I didn't have when we first had kids. So I know a lot of women talk about their husbands not necessarily being completely on board with gentle parenting, or even in some of the Waldorf circles of how does your husband, hey Whitney, how does your husband deal with, if you don't do media, or there's so many different avenues that I've gotten a lot of women who have said, how do you get your husband on board with your meal plan? Since I am a crazy meal planner, and I love making sure that I simplify my life as much as possible so I don't have to think about what I'm doing. So I would, if you'd be willing to, share how all of the things that I've implemented over the past couple years has affected you and kind of your perspective on them now, a few years in.
Okay, yeah. From my perspective, a few years ago, she's saying that it didn't start out as a business. It didn't even start out as... It turned into a concept, but it really started in nature, that she would take the kids and just go learn to go foraging and eating bushes in the forest. So she was doing that, and then, one thing turned into another, and learning different ways to implement things, and then we had to change our diet plan many times, and having to implement those. So there's been a lot of hurdles we've had to go through. And then you're always asking the question, well, why can't we do this? Why can't we do that? Why can't I, eat certain foods and stuff like that? And it's not just the foods that have these...
Carly's laughing.
It's the tip of the iceberg. When you start to ask questions about your demeanor and where you're headed in life, you start to you reflect on the inside and realize, you can change things for the better. And that's basically what she's been doing, and implementing strategies to change things. And then after doing, going out and foraging, and then having her design on how she wanted to parent, because when she wanted to have kids since she was a kid. Or how do you say that?
Since I was little, yeah.
Like our daughter, Skyen, wants to be a mommy already, sort of thing. So it's just implementing that and all the different techniques that she had, and then she's put together this thing of like, hey, I can implement these, and maybe I can help other people. We've come to this part. So with all these different things that she's done throughout the last many years, since I've known her, it's been a continual growth. It wasn't her getting me on board with anything. It's just a matter of a thought process. And for me, it's like when we choose to do something, when you have your choices in hand, you look at the outcome. And so you may not like the choice, but the outcome is better. And that it wasn't always the case. It's not like all the decisions that she's come up with that's put onto my table that I got to go yay or nay with has been a bad one, and I just got to put up with it. It's just you look at the outcome, and if the outcome's better, it's a better scenario than going, well, I'd rather do this, but the outcome's not as good, so to speak. And I think I'm leaning that towards, maybe in this conversation, towards a lot of things, but parenting, and mainly parenting, I guess, for the children, and television for the children, part of the parenting. Not sure where we're going from here, but if I continue on with... So in my childhood, I was raised that, you got the belt. I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with it. If not, you had friends that were. You always got spanked and you always got put in the corner, that sort of thing. So when our kids were growing up, when they were younger, they do bad things, and the first thing that popped in my head was like, you're going to get a spanking, So, but she would tell me that that's not the way to do it. That's not right. And then I'm frustrated and aggravated because I want to do something about it. And then as time has gone by since that time, I still every once in a while lash out and be like, but it's not as relevant, and it's it's not there as much anymore because I realized that is not the true answer as far as not spanking your children. Talk to them and treat them like people because they're people.
So I think that brings up a good point that so often we think that we find gentle parenting or we find alternative parenting and we think that the way that we were parented is just going to vanish. Oh, we learned a new tool, learned a new technique, we learned that spanking or yelling is not the way, and I've read a book and now I'm going to be that parent. And it would be awesome if that happened, but the way we were raised actually does have a very big impact on the way that we react. And until we are able to start controlling and observing and being aware of our own thoughts, our own actions, and our own behavior, those generational themes that have always been used are going to be the way that we react. So I'd say the most important thing that we have both grown together in is our ability to be aware. And not just aware of our own behavior, but calling each other out on each other's behavior.
Well, I think a lot of what you're doing allows you to be present. So when you're present, when she's present, it allows you to make decisions based on what's going to actually happen at the moment for the decision that you're going to make. So rather than turning around and just doing something that is old generations, it's an evolutionary process that she's creating on her own. So I mean, there's other people that have done it, but you have to take that first step. So you take the first step into thinking about the action and then going, well, what is the outcome of that? Well, the outcome is that you're actually, as far as spanking your kids is concerned, technically you're not spanking, you're actually hitting your kid. So it'd just be like, you don't treat your friends that way. You just go around smacking your friends around when they make you upset. No, you go, hey man, that's not cool. Can you not do that? So you explain to them, and usually, as adults, if I could say we're adults, we kind of understand, or so we lay off and we go about our business. So you have to teach kids that they have, kids do have a mind. You don't have to teach them that. You just have to teach them that they can use their words, or they can use their minds, or they can use their feelings or whatever to come across to be able to relay what they need to get out before the spanking needs to even happen, so to speak. So it always doesn't come to that point like, oh, they deserve a spanking now. It's what happened before that led up to that point.
Or even yelling.
And in most cases, it's us that leads the children to act the way that they do, and it's our decisions that brought them to that stage in their life. So, I mean, as far as the TV goes, everything on television is about fighting and swords and shooting people, and everybody's got a bad attitude, and there's always a bad guy. And I think that a lot of kids nowadays see that, and that's just how they act. And then one thing leads to another, and they're tired, cranky, or hungry, and they need something and don't know how to say it. And next thing you know, you're fed up with them, so you just want to. The easiest way to do it is to yell at them or spank them or put them in the corner. But you have to diffuse the situation before you need that. It's like a reflection. You got to go all the way back to the beginning, and once you starting from there, it gets a lot easier. So, and that's been my journey with this. So, like, she has already been able to do that since the beginning, and she's even gotten better at becoming a more gentler, understanding, communicative parent. And with me coming in, having to change my ways about that, that's kind of like the step that I've taken, is to realize where this is stemming from, why that attitude's coming in, and I think everything is in that same path. Everything that always leads to that breaking point, whether it's parenting or relationships or even a conversation that you're having with somebody, I think it all stems from there's an underlying factor, or there's something that happened previous to that builds up to that point that allows you to handle it the way you decide to handle it. Is that right?
Yeah. So, I do just want to mention there's a few people hopping on and hopping off, and I know that Facebook Live can be a bit glitchy. So, if you want to go into the event and click on the Zoom link that is actually listed in the event details, you can hop on the Zoom. You can hop in the Zoom video feed, and you won't have so much of the glitchy dropping you issues. So hopefully Alora and Alicia are still on the call. Hello to you guys. So we touched on being present, awareness, generational themes, and a big one that we even had in our Taboo Tuesday topic of hitting or yelling at our kids and getting that satisfaction from it. But I think that's such a generational evolutionary theme that we're going through right now, and not just in parenting, but in our entire culture. Our entire culture is so used to lashing out, and we are now getting to a space in our evolution, just as humans, of being present and not reacting so much, and being aware of what our words are. Our words are powerful, and we're now just learning all of these tools.
I think just to kind of give it another perspective on that. Stop me if I'm rambling on, because I can do that. But it's like I say, an evolutionary thing with that is spanking is the easiest way, and it's not the spanking, but hitting or lashing out or being angry is the easiest way. Like the Neanderthals, they lash out. It's the easiest way to get rid of that. Yeah, because you have all that weight on your shoulders. It's the easiest way to okay, it's gone now. But it doesn't solve a problem. So that it's where you put your energy, and that's kind of what she's doing, is allowing with magical mothering, from my perspective, is to allow to push that energy into different places and use your energies differently. That way they don't get to that breaking point, and then you just go, then whatever happens, and then...
Right, and then you have the guilt and the...
Some people do, some people don't.
Some people do, yeah.
It's about the overall process of whether it's your children and how you want them to be raised, or whether it's your friends and how you want your friends to respect you. You respect your friends, they respect you, your family, everybody. People you don't even know. I mean, when you walk into a store, you interact with somebody, it's usually hi, and everything's happy.
Speaking of family, Travis's mom just hopped on. Hello, Lorraine. That was perfect timing. So Krista has an amazing question, which I didn't even think of. So she says, do you guys schedule together time and individual time without the children, or does it happen naturally? So
it's a little bit of both. We try to schedule kid time as much as we can. We always have the schedule of, we're going to do it once a week, twice a week, something like that.
No, she's asking if we schedule time together without the kids.
Oh, I thought it was with the kids too. Yeah,
No, without the kids.
Without the kids, no, we don't really. It just happens naturally, and we get together once or twice a week.
I schedule it.
Okay. She says that.
He thinks it happens
now
naturally.
Now you know the secret.
He thinks it happens naturally that we spontaneously hang out 3 to 4 times a week, and I schedule it.
And now you know. I'm going to have to look into that. See what's really going on now.
So, to answer that, he has band practice on Monday, Wednesday, and Fridays.
Friday, yeah.
And then sometimes he has shows on Saturdays.
Well, yeah,
Depends on when he has shows as well. So I know that I schedule all of my calls, my one-on-one sessions, I do all my work, my blogs, I do all of those on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday nights when he's gone. So I purposely leave my schedule open on Tuesdays and Thursdays and Saturday and Sunday nights when I know that he's going to be around, and if he needs his own time, he gets it. But if I can sneak in there and say, hey, you want to hang out, you doing anything, you want to watch a movie, then I purposely keep those moments free and open to make sure that we're connecting at least a couple times a
It's
week.
not scheduled, then it's just open.
They're not buying it.
Okay.
Hey Nicole, welcome to the call. Oh my goodness. So, yeah.
See, when somebody changes your beliefs, it's hard to believe. You gotta just accept it and move on.
All right. So, all right. Does anybody have any questions?
Well, what's your next topic? What was the first topic? Expectations.
We could do expectations. That would be a good one to go into. So as I told Travis, I go, I want to talk about expectations. He goes, oh, my expectations of you are super high. And I was like, what? No, we're doing a call on releasing expectations. He's like, uh-uh. And I go, so from my perspective as the magical mother, I release my expectations. And I truly back this full-heartedly that as I have released my expectations, I've been able to fall in love with his authentic self for completely who he is. Because I don't expect him to not change. I don't expect him to stay in the same role that I want him to. I don't expect him to parent a certain way. I don't expect him to not change his mind. So, and we've actually had many conversations about this leading up to this, of when he asks me to keep him accountable, I do, and then he goes, okay, no, I don't want you to keep me accountable on that, I changed my mind. And sometimes I have to go, oh, wait, but, what? But we still have to have that conversation of...
Yeah, it's in my opinion, this is my opinion again, I think it's a work in progress. It's not that you have dropped expectations completely.
No,
It's
and
a constant
they
work
come
in
up
progress.
again, and yeah, absolutely.
But in the same token, I've felt the same way
Hi,
with my
Fleur.
expectations. So
Autumn's little girl, who's 8 months old, is waving at us. So we're waving back at you. Hi! So fun.
So yeah, I've learned to lower my expectations as well, and it's a lot less. You lose a lot of stress. You don't stress as much because you don't have think that's going to happen. And I think we were talking about it the other day that when it comes to the expectations and you drop them, you go, well, if you had expectations of something, it doesn't happen. It's kind of like, well, if you don't like the end result, then do it yourself, sort of idea. And that's kind of that happens a lot around here. You know, if we don't like the way it's going, we do it ourselves. And if it's not to our expectations, well, we've learned to lower those expectations, so we don't really have them anymore. And there seems to be a lot more joy, more happiness, more ease around the house. It's more relaxing, not having such a high expectation.
Hey, Natalie and Sarah, welcome to the call. If you have any questions, feel free to type them in. So, yeah, with the expectations, I think it's been really interesting because I've been working with releasing expectations rather than just lowering expectations or keeping, a lot of times what's promoted in the counseling and therapy sessions is having realistic expectations. And I took it one step further and said, yeah, just drop them all. Why keep them? They just cause you disappointment. They just cause you, heartache. And it's a constant of seeing something come up where I go, oh, I'm expecting that. I'm just going to let that go and see what happens and have faith that if I don't expect something from it, then all the possibilities open. When we have certain expectations, we zero in on things, and oftentimes there's 100 other things that could have happened or could be possible, and we're now narrowing down all of those to to only one thing that we expect to happen. And when it doesn't, we're almost blind to everything else that really could come from it. So I think that despite him having expectations still, I feel like we've both come on a very wild adventure of a journey through our relationship and through the things that we've gone through of being really open to not having so many expectations. Like when we lived in the desert, there was certain things that we just couldn't have expectations for. And it really opened us both up to seeing that there's more than just one possibility or one way of seeing.
Well, to chime in, to give you a perspective, though, to really understand how what we're doing together, as far as growth work and stuff like that is concerned, she's constantly working on herself to better herself and has the mind frame and wants to do that. That's what she is doing. I'm floating off doing my own thing and just receiving this as it's happening around me and accepting that. So I'm learning things through her, but I'm not taking the courses or doing any of the. I'm not doing any of the work. I'm just kind of watching it from the outside, kind of the outside looking in. But I too look to better myself, and I have my outlets that I do that, and I have there's certain people just as you would watch the Sacred Circle, the Magical Mothering, I watch UFC and Joe Rogan, and those are like my ways of learning and taking things. And there's a lot to learn on them. There's people on their spiritual path that you listen to, just podcasts and things like that. So I do things my way with my growth and spiritual growth and self. And then it just comes into the way that she does her things and where she learns and how she takes her stuff. So we end up meeting in the middle with what she has and what I have. And, we're both kind of going our own directions, but we've developed an understanding. We've always had an understanding, but it's developing of how we want to live our life, how we want to pursue a relationship together, spend our time, how we want to raise our children, how we want to spend our money, how we want to do this, how we're going to do that, and so on and so forth. But by no means am I doing any of the work and things that she's doing. So that's the perspective of...
And I would say it almost has, there's a lot of stuff that I do, which is why I really encourage moms to do the work and to put yourself first in a lot of these instances of if you don't know something, figure it out. And if you're not able to stay with it, to get the support that you need to stay with it, because I've noticed that just through my own personal growth, it almost is like osmosis. There's some things that can just happen because I've brought it into the home, because it's just how our home is, that he automatically absorbs it. Because I'm more patient, more gentle, more loving to him, to the kids, to the people in our lives, he sees that, and he sees the dynamic change that has happened, and so automatically he's more gentle and loving and compassionate towards me, because that's just how I am now more often.
That's your energy function.
Yeah.
Jessica's asking, how engaged am I with the household rhythm? Is that correct? It's partial, because with being a musician on the side, I have late nights, so I don't really get to see the kids in the morning.
Well, she's talking about the chores. Does he do chores? No.
Is that what it doesn't say nothing about chores. It's a household rhythm.
The household.
Chores.
What a rhythm is. He doesn't know what a rhythm is. Sorry, guys.
Okay.
So the household rhythm is like the cooking, our rhythm with the kids. So my cooking, my cleaning, my nature walks, the household rhythm, the stuff that I do with the kids.
As far as that goes, I try to join in when I can, when I have the time, when I have the headspace to do it, on top of the other things that I'm doing. I take care of all the other stuff, mainly.
He pays the bills.
I pay the bills. I do all the outside fixing and repairs and all the fun stuff. She gets to do all the house stuff. So
But even when he's here, there's not every day that he's joining in and going on nature walks with us, and he's very much doing his own
no, it's
thing.
not that often. I'm usually off just doing something else, or off in my own head, or writing music, or
Okay.
having to do whatever it is that I feel that I have to do. So when I do come in, when I do realize that I have some time, or I can spend my time this way, I do try to chime in and give the kids and them my time.
Yeah, and
As
I
far
think
as the rhythm goes, it's just being able to pull myself to have the time. And I don't know that many fathers that I talk to, so I don't know if they have that same scenario. But from what I've heard, a few people, they have the same type of scenario where they just kind of they get off work or whatever they're doing, whatever they have to do, and they just go they float off into their thing. I think it might just be a man thing. We're just not present. It's hard to live present and be in the moment and that sort of thing. There's a lot of stuff in our heads, or in my head anyway. Can't speak for everybody.
Oh, Carly's video's frozen. Refresh it. Bummer. And Jessica, to go into that just a little bit more, is what I've really emphasized is making sure that I'm looking at things like the dishes, the laundry, the housework, the maintenance, and the rhythm aspect as my playtime. That's really how I categorize it now in my own brain, so that it's always playing. It's always playful. I'm not just having to do, I'm not the servant, I'm not the maid. That's actually my way that I play.
And having kids, the kids play, wash the dishes, and the kids play, cook the food, and the kids
Right.
play, clean up after themselves, and so on and so forth.
So that has really helped in my headspace, where I used to get really frustrated and going, he doesn't help, blah, blah, blah. And instead, I made sure that when he is here and he is present, that he's the one who's playing with the kids. They're on the floor, they're interacting, because that is what matters most. There's always going to be a sink full of dishes. There's always going to be a load of laundry. But what your kids remember is their time with Dad. Playing, doing arts and crafts. I try to put those opportunities on the table as often as possible when he's here. That way they get a chance to really connect and go and grow together, rather than taking away that time for him to help me do other things that I now categorize as a really fun way to keep the household maintained and to pour my love into the house in another way.
There's a lot of ground to cover on these topics. I mean,
Yeah, this
there's a lot
is
of
such
stuff. We're kind of going
snippet.
on a whim. We don't have a whole thing written out and how we're going to do it. So, bear with us, please.
Okay, so Autumn wants to know, as far as what do you both do as parents that promote magical living with your kids? Do you do crafts or work with natural elements?
I think we have all that aspect. Yeah, we do crafts. We do have the outside time that they're always playing. The best time for me that I bond with the kids is I have to get out of the house. So we like to go on trips, just whether we're going
Like little day trips.
little day trips, yeah. Like, go to the park, or a lot of times we like to go to the lake and just walk around the lake and throw rocks in the water and just hang out. It's a lot easier to do in the summer than it is the winter. But that's for me to really get the full time, so they have my full time. My whole family has nothing but me because I'm out there present in the moment. So that's like my way to be completely present with everybody around me, rather than when you're in the house, there's always something to do. There's always something that you look over and go, oh yeah, that reminds me, I got to do that, or we got to go over here. There's so many things that are in your way that all this stuff is always calling out to you and move me over here and do this and do that. So,
And
did I answer that right?
Autumn, I'd love to know any examples of magical, like maybe what your do you promote magical living with your kids. So I do love my rituals and things like that, but and then as far as working with the natural elements, yeah, if you want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, what the natural elements means.
If you're talking about magical folk, Travis doesn't believe in the magical folk in the same way that I do.
I have my own perspective on it.
Hey, Sarah. Welcome to the call. Yeah, so, and I think it's important, and I think a big thing that I wanted to kind of share with the magical mothering community and with the group is that just because of the way that I am and the way that I think and the things that I believe doesn't mean that he's 100% on board. But that doesn't mean that I have to stop doing what I feel really inspired and passionate about doing, if that makes sense. Just because your partner might not understand where you're coming from at first, or might disagree, or might think a different way, doesn't mean that you can't be open, communicate that, disagree, and still pursue what you're passionate about, because I think that's really important as empowered mothers, that we show our children that we can stand firm, that we don't need to have everybody agree with us about what we feel is right or what we feel called and led to do. I think it's really important to show our children that even within a marriage or a partnership, that you can have disagreements, and that's okay. You don't have to have everybody's approval just to do what you're passionate about.
Yeah, and it brings to mind a take on that, the changing of the diets. I remember, 2 or 3 years ago when we had to drastically change the diet. I complained like a child for a long time, for months, about how I didn't like it and this and that, and that was when I was learning when I started to release my expectations. Like, if I didn't like it, well, then I'll just do it myself, sort of thing. Well, I've come to grow, and having changed the diet, everything's been better. Our kids are healthier and happier, so she continued to pursue it, even though I was whining the whole way, and I've gotten used to it, and now I respect it because you could see the difference. Everything's different once you go down that road and you start to pursue that. You start to look back and go, wow, how much has changed. Because it's hard to see it from the beginning because you're just used to all the way things are. But as you start to go down those paths, whatever path you take, and you start to look back, there's drastic changes in that. And if it wasn't for her saying, this is what we're doing because we have to do this, and it was imperative that we have to change the diet for Zion, that got us to this point now. And I think it's all those things. Once you really get into something that is important and pursue that, whether it be health, spirituality, mentality, anything, you'll see the results if you're relentless about it, and if it's true.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see, I'm going to look at my notes. Does anybody have any questions or comments or anything like that? So we've actually covered quite a bit of stuff. How do you find time to strengthen your relationship as a couple? Hi, Heidi. Thanks for the question. How do you find time to maintain or strengthen your relationship as a couple? We touched on that just a little bit earlier, but we can always elaborate on that. Somebody asked us if we...
It depends how the question's worded, too.
Yeah. Maintain or strengthen.
We have a lot of conversations. Mm-hmm. Some of those conversations turn out to be arguments. But we don't like...
I don't think
we don't get in heated arguments, though.
This is our arguing, talking over each other.
Yeah, we don't argue like that. we don't yell at each other in that aspect. We have a lot of disagreements and we argue, and if it starts to get like if nobody's understanding, then we just kind of walk away and we'll just come back to it later. Or if we've gotten to the point now that if we're not understanding each other, we'll just we'll just start another conversation about something else, knowing each other full enough that we'll know we'll get back to it later. Even though it's still bugging us, it's not as important. If it's starting to bother you and you're having the conversation, then it can't be that important. If it's that important, then it better be something drastic, that needs to be settled at the moment, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that was something that I started early on. I refused to argue. I refused to let a situation, because especially when I was pregnant with my first son, when I got pregnant, I got emotional and I just cried. Like, I couldn't argue. I couldn't say what I wanted to say if the conversation got too intense. So ever since that point, if it's getting to that point where I'm really getting emotional about it, if I'm not feeling heard, sometimes I just walk away for a little bit, or we change the topic, and that way I can journal about what's going on. I can take a moment to go, where am I trying to go with this? Why am I not getting hurt? What am I even trying to say? What is he and really sometimes taking the conversation and figuring out what you're trying to even express, and then going back to it in a different way at a different time. And again,
Well, and to answer your question, because we went off on a tangent of
how do you maintain strength in your relationship? You said conversations.
Yeah, it's the way we have time to do it. Mainly is after the kids go to bed, we'll sit down and we'll watch a movie, or we'll watch
a Joe Rogan, or
we'll watch something, or watch a documentary, and it strikes up conversation, and then the conversation one thing leads to another, and we just end up talking, and we're always talking about something. We've gotten, as you get to know somebody, you start to you get to a plateau, not necessarily a plateau, but you get to a point where I know her stance on her spirituality. I know her stance on this. I know her stance on that, and she knows mine. So when you get to that point, you can continue that conversation on a different level. So when we sit down and watch TV and certain things spark, we kind of just continue on our journey and conversations as they excel with the new knowledge that we are taking in from what we're seeing. So we're constantly have a thirst for knowledge, and we search for it. So.
I think another aspect of maintaining and strengthening our relationship is accepting each other as exactly who we are in the moment.
Yeah.
We change, we grow. I mean, my gosh, we are not the same people whatsoever, even from 2 years ago. And yet, we constantly allow each other to be who we are in that moment. We don't go, oh, you're not the person I married. Well, no, who wants that person?
Yeah.
No. So, allowing each other the space to grow and be exactly who you are, whether it's completely different than what you expected them to become or not expected them to become, but really allowing each other to be the unique beings that we are always growing into and becoming. And I would say that that's a really vital and important thing that we do with our kids too. We never expect them to be the same way each day. And sometimes that's a hard thing to accept, where you go, man, you were so good yesterday. And that's just something that comes out of our mouths sometimes, or like our society goes, why can't you always be this way, like you are today? But realizing that it's important that people change. And if we're not changing, then that's not what life is about. Life is about changing and growing and evolving. And
if you choose to.
If you choose to.
You don't have to change.
You don't have to. You can.
If some people don't have to. Some people find a nice little happy space in life and want to ride that out. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't see anything wrong with that.
You get sick and you get diseased and
maybe
you get
spiritually
blocked and you're not inspired and you have no passion, and
I know
you
people
can stay stuck.
Yeah, I know people that don't necessarily continue to grow, because they're happy where they are. They don't want to grow. That's fine if that's what they want to do. But I mean, if you do continue to grow, you'll find there's a whole lot of life out there.
Yeah.
it's one big game, and you play it however you want. So some choose to check out and not play it anymore, and if you choose to play it, then you can choose to play it however you want to play it. I mean, how much do you want to succeed, or how much do you want to learn, or I don't know where we're going with that, but anyway.
You said something and it reminded me of something I wrote down, but
I don't know your notes.
oh, they're right there. Yeah. Yeah, again, I think we kind of started off the conversation with that whole, especially I think there's a lot of fear when I work with women and moms who are going to be growing and transforming and changing their lives, that they're going to kind of leave their husbands behind, that their husbands aren't willing to change and grow and transform their lives. But I think there is something that I've just seen within our own relationship of when I take a step to change and grow and transform, it affects him, whether he wants to grow and change and transform.
Well, and I'm not there to stop the step either. I'm not there to go, well, I don't want you to do that. You know, there's no conversation that it's like, I don't like that, so don't do that. Whatever it is that you pursue, if it's good, if there's good intentions behind it, she pursues it.
Do you have any advice for husbands that maybe are more, scared of their wives changing?
I don't know.
Is that something that might
I don't know if I think if because we're all people. So if somebody's afraid of somebody changing, they're obviously afraid for themselves, because it's going to be how it benefits them or how it changes their lifestyle. So if they're comfortable in their own, with what they're doing now, and then something comes in and wants to change it, then they have to live with that new change. And maybe they're not. A lot of people may not be susceptible to change, but I wouldn't let that stop you if you think you should change, and if it's something that you feel you need to do or something you want to grow, then you should do it, and there shouldn't be anything stopping you. And as far as what was the question? What to say?
Yeah, just because I have talked with some women who their husbands are very much like, I don't want to change our meal plan, I don't want to do this, I don't, and from your perspective
There's
of
gotta
me
be,
stepping into the role of just,
right.
I just did it, and kind
All
of
right,
from
so,
your perspective.
Okay, the only thing I can say is that if you have a relationship, you obviously work together to accomplish something. So, and if I take it that most everybody on the call are parents,
Yeah.
right? So if you have parents, well, then you took that step to have kids. But you take that step to have kids, you got to take the responsibility to have kids. You're constantly taking steps, so you got that far already, and now you want to change and go on to the next path. You had open communication the whole time to get that far, so you got to keep that communication open or figure out where it was, and just make sure that I would just say have a conversation and let them know where you stand, and without getting angry about it. And if they get angry, then if you get angry, there's some underlying issues that you have to deal with, and maybe those underlying issues is your partner. And if your partner gets angry, maybe there's underlying issues that they need to deal with, and then that's something that you can work on together, because you should be working to better both of your lives. And if taking each other with you, you guys should both be gaining growth in life, so to speak. So.
And I do. I've actually, in regards to that of me changing.
Yeah. Sorry, I was gonna say. When it comes to that, it's kind of like when you're going to pursue that, it's baby steps too. Yeah, you might want to go into something full bore, but as man having to see this, you kind of give it to him little by little, I guess. I think it would be the same thing with anybody. It's the same thing with baby steps.
Even with kids, when you're transitioning into everything.
Everything, just little bits by little bits, and it starts to grow on you, and then you explain, what the good that's coming out of it, everybody should be on board to want to better themselves.
And I would say make sure that you're taking in the necessary steps. That if you want to change, make sure that you're changing you first, and your transformation and your change will automatically have a positive impact on your partner, your kids, and it will just, again, it will help. You'll change the whole household by your growth and transformation.
Yeah, it'll change everything, spiritually, so to speak.
Energetically,
the energy will change, and you'll feel like there's a lot more compromise rather than going against the grain, and that's my experience with her doing all the things that she's done. It was, for me at the beginning, we agreed on a lot of stuff, but the things we didn't, it was always going against the grain. Well, as the things started to implement, they started going. Same thing with getting rid of the expectations. You just come to know it as it is, and you realize how much better it is. So it's a slow process. It takes time. It's a constant. It's constant. It always needs work. You can't ever really set it down. You always should work towards it, and always try to better it, whatever it is you're doing.
Yeah. Well, this has been fun. So unexpected conversations, which I was excited that you guys asked questions and were involved, and it makes it so much.
Has it been an hour already?
More fun. Yeah.
Wow.
Right? So now you know.
I was just getting warmed up here.
So now you know how I can be up here going la 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 la.
Yeah, it's easy.
And it's easy to have it go by that fast. So we've got a few more minutes. If anybody has any questions that they would like to say before we hop off. Hey, Joanne.
Yeah, and I tend to ramble on. So if I didn't answer your question correctly, just type it back in and say you didn't answer my question.
No, they all said wonderful. Thank you. People were.
Yeah, there's so much information and ways and techniques to do things, and none of it's sneaky by doing it baby steps. It's all just subtle. You have to like slowly implement that. But I would say the first thing that you do is just acknowledge what you want to pursue, and then sit down with your spouse, or sit down just like you would sit down with your friends. And if you can't have that open relationship with your spouse as you do with your friends, then maybe you should work on that. Because you should be able to tell your spouse everything. You know, I pretty much I talk a lot, so, for not being a talker, but, you know, with being in a band, it's kind of like a second family. So with talking to them, then, you know, they get to know the real me and who I am. So it's like, I got 2 other guys that I'm married to, so to speak. You know, we're working on our relationship as well, and it's a constant thing. And it's a little different than a friendship, because a friendship is, it kind of, you know, it can come and go, or however that works. But it's the same type of thing, that it takes work, and open communication is the best. You can achieve anything with it. And if you have that, then you can succeed in anything that you want to do. So
Nicole said it was fun. Thank you. Thank you for being on the call and for staying all the way through. So that was really awesome. And if let me know in the Facebook group if you guys would want to do this again. If you have any other questions that come up, and if you wanted to, maybe we could go on to another topic, or if anything comes up for this and you have any questions for Travis even after this, feel free to post them.
Or if you have questions, we can do another one in a couple weeks or something like that, and we can
once a month or
answer
something.
all the questions.
Yeah. Hey, Tracy.
I only know my experience, so I can only explain my experience. So if it helps, I'm happy to help.
But ladies, I've talked to lots of you, and he is a lot like all of your husbands. which is why I wanted him to be, which is why I was so excited that he was willing to do this, because just sometimes having a male's perspective, and being able to ask questions on a situation that you feel is different than yours, it's really not. It's very similar to a lot of you guys who I've spoken to, either on the call or within the Facebook group. So, again, it's just another way that I would like to be able to support you guys. So,
Yeah. Well, most men are very stubborn. I'm stubborn, so
hey, Lori.
it's taken. I'm still stubborn to this day, but it's taken that communication and the compromise, and it's like at first I thought I was compromising a lot, but in the reality is I'm not really compromising anything. It's not
Yay, thank you, Krista.
It's not my time that I'm compromising. It's just my life experience that I get to experience, and I get to experience her life. And I'm glad that she went down this path, because it's opened up things that I probably would have never learned. So it's all good.
I think that's a good point though, is when you step into your authentic self as the woman, as the mother, as that role model for the household, for you are the hearth keeper, so they say. You are the one that holds the home together. When you step into your willingness to change or transform or grow, your husband, there's like a magic that happens, and your husband looks at you because you are more empowered, because you do have more confidence, because you are standing your ground. There is an energy shift that happens, and you become more attractive, more desirable, because you are this being of authority, and you're stepping into that space, and you become more. They're like, who is this? Who is this? You know, and it's fun. So
Taking care of business, you know.
yeah.
And that's I think I'm gonna ramble on for another second. I think there was a gap in time when women, they silently ran the household back in, I don't know, what I
Forever.
couldn't say. But before the media and television all started, you know, the men went out and they hunted and did all that stuff, and the women always ran the household. It was always that way. And then there was a shift that changed, and it put everything in perspective. I think it started when, forget when it was, when 1930s or something. The I don't want to overstep my bounds because I'm not sure exactly what I'm talking to here, but it's like the everybody, the whole movement of, I think it was 1943 when women started working, getting the jobs.
Oh,
Then
like
the whole thing shifted, and then there was all
during
this
the war.
conversation, about now women have jobs and all this. And then all this stuff, all the media has just thrown everything up in the air, and the television, all the movies throughout the years, has put this idea of what a family and what people should be doing with their lives, and how to raise your children, and where to raise your children, and have your children in a hospital, and get your flu shot, and do this and do that, and they tell you how to live your lives, and that's where we've stepped out of that, and we choose for ourselves. And by saying that, I'm saying that that allows us to be open and have these type of conversations, because we don't have the influence that maybe a lot of people do have in society, still watching a lot of the daytime television shows or movies that are coming out or stuff like that, or what the news is telling them is going on. So, you get what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying. We don't, we're very off the beaten path.
I'm just saying
We
it-
don't do mainstream society. So
It changes your opinion when you
Hey,
start to think
Lisa.
for yourself rather than have
someone think
have
for you.
have somebody think for you, and the media and movies and all that stuff tends to do that. So as people having those conversations, you really think that the reality you're living is a certain way, but in actuality it's not. So to come out of that, that's the tough one to change, and to convince somebody that the reality is not the same. And that's where I think that leads up to when you want somebody to change or you're working to change yourself, the media, social media, and reality tells you that's not the way to go. But there's an underground movement, and that's what you're doing. So,
Movement.
and it's happening. A spiritual movement,
Yes.
and it's happening now.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, if any dads joined in, that would be fun too. So, looking forward to possibly doing this again. Think of any questions that might have this brought up, and we're so glad that you guys were all able to be here. Oh, Tracy said it's nice to see a husband and wife doing something together. Yes. So, thank you for being a part of this.
And if you do have any comments, leave them, please. And if there are any guys watching, leave your comments as well. I'd be interested to see what's going on out there.
So, all right, have a wonderful and blessed night, everybody, and thank you for being here. Bye! All right.